welcome all of us to this meeting, and as especially for our guests, as you are already aware, before this committee and before this parliament is the bill, the National Examinations Board, and under consideration, and you have been invited as key stakeholders, or part of the key stakeholders, for consultations in a process of processing the bill for onward transmission into a law. I therefore wish to guide that we will have presentations on your views that we expect to enrich this bill, and in your presentations, after your presentations, we will seek any clarifications that we may need, or ask questions on issues that we may find unanswered or uncleared, and then we will give you an opportunity to respond. I therefore wish to suggest that we have the two presentations for the two stakeholders so far around. We have all of them, both of them presented, then we respond at once. I therefore wish to invite National Council for Higher Education to kickstart the process. You're welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, and also particularly for inviting us, our National Council, and for us to make contribution to this bill. Our National Council on the whole is very happy with the tone and also the clarity of the bill, but also we have also made a few observations and comments, which through you, Chair, I would like to allow me to invite the legal officer of National Council, Madam Fiona Kunihira, to present them to you.
Good morning once again, Chairperson and members. I'll present a few comments from the National Council for Higher Education on the Uganda National Examinations Board Bill 2020. I'll start off with the definition provision. We have a few copies of our presentation. I hope members have managed to get copies. So I'll go to the definition section. We looked at some of the key definitions. For example, the definition of examination paper, it's on section 1 of the bill. If you go to page 4, an examination paper is defined as a question paper, examination instructions, a draft, a copy of a question paper. In our view, the word draft creates a presupposition that a draft, as opposed to a final paper confirmed for the examination of candidates, may be issued to candidates. So we thought that this should probably be deleted, the draft element in the definition of examination paper, section 1, page 4 of the bill. Moving forwards, we also propose that the definition of examination paper, examination material, and examination malpractice should be qualified to refer to examinations over which the board has mandate, because, as you are aware, other bodies also conduct exams. For example, there is UBTEB, then there are our universities and other tertiary institutions, because in certain sections of the bill you find that the word examination could, be a bit vague if it is not restricted to the mandate of your name. And I would then like to proceed to section 4.1d of the bill. I hope I'm not moving too fast. Section 4.1d of the bill on the functions of the examinations board. One of the functions is to issue Section 1d on page 6. One of the functions is to issue certificates of confirmation where certificates awarded where certificates are awarded are lost or destroyed, or on request by any other person. Now, our view is that the words any other person can invite really anybody to ask for anyone's qualifications. In our view, this can pose a risk of fraud and breach of the right to privacy. So we propose that the circumstances under which other people can access documents that do not belong to them should be clearly spelled out in the law. And then I'll proceed to Section 5. Section 5.2 of the bill on the powers of the examinations board. It allows the board to demand for any information, Section 5.2a, any information, document or record in respect of any examination where an examination malpractice is alleged. Again, we were saying, just for clarity, that the examination malpractice should be that related to these exams that UNEB has mandate over. Then our next comment is in Section 6.2 on the membership of the board of directors. There is a proposal, Section 6.2k, to have a vice chancellor representing both public and private universities. Now, for us as people who have interacted with them, the public and private universities usually like to have independent representatives, even in our own council. We thought having one to represent both of them might not cater for the interests of their different interests. And so we were proposing having two vice chancellors, one for public universities and another to cater for the private university interests. And this could be elected from among themselves as opposed to the vice chancellor's forum, which tends to be really a forum over which the private universities have bigger control. And then our next comments were on sections 13 and 14 of the bill. We just noted that Schedule 2, which is referred to in those two provisions, was not attached to our copy. I don't know if maybe other copies could have it, but our copy didn't have it, so this should be catered for before the bill is passed. But that said, we were proposing, unfortunately that was a key provision. I think it was the one for quorum of the board, number of meetings. Anyway, we proposed that the board should meet at least 4 times, and then special meetings can be called upon application by at least 1/3 of all members. This we picked from our own act, and it's worked for us, just to cater for the issue of meetings. The Schedule 2 could be incorporated there. Our next comment is on Section 34.2 of the bill. That provision is on disclosure of interest in an examination. I'll read it out. Section 34.2, it says, a person who discloses an interest shall continue to be engaged in the duties. Well, an interest referred to in subsection 1 above. I haven't read subsection 1. I didn't think it was so critical. A person who discloses an interest shall continue to be engaged in the duties referred to in subsection 1 unless the examination board otherwise directs. But our view is that the section should be recast in such a way that where a person discloses an interest which creates a conflict of interest, then that person should be excused from that particular assignment. It shouldn't be left to the discretion of the board if there is a conflict of interest. So that component should be taken care of in this provision. Last but not least, our next comment was on Section 43 of the bill. Section 43.1. It's on the oath of secrecy. Again, I'll read it out. It says the examinations board may require a person who is engaged in the preparation, conduct, and supervision of any examination or handling any examination paper or material take the oath of secrecy as prescribed by the examinations board. Now, our view is that all persons who work with UNEB should take the oath of secrecy. They should only be required, as a mandatory provision. However, there should be grounds when officers can be allowed to disclose information that comes to them in the course of their duties. And maybe the law can spell it out, but it should not be just for a few people handling exams. It should be for everybody and should be mandatory. And then lastly, we apologize, this is not part of was not in the typed text. On the section on the mandate of UNEB, if I can just take you back on section 4 on the functions of UNEB, we are proposing that UNEB should also have the powers to state the qualifications for candidates who will register for the exams. We don't seem to see it here. It would be helpful so that we know, maybe you should have a P7 certificate and then O-level if you're to do A-level, something like that. Thank you so much. That's the end of our presentation. The qualifications of persons registering for the exams over which they have mandate.
Hello, Chair and members. So with that, we really do submit.
We will proceed to the next presentation. Then we will come back to discussions. NCDC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members, and thanks for the invitation. I should say I received the invitation at short notice, but I tried to peruse through. First of all, I want to agree with most of the issues raised by the National Council for Higher Education, but I think that on the issue of, on page 9, of the representation of the public, on the representation of universities, looking at the mandate of UNEB and the interest of universities in this, we think that it would be better if we have one representation as opposed to two, because this particular institution vis-a-vis the universities at that point or at that level may not warrant both public and private for purposes of corporate governance issues, but we can have one person representing. Maybe they can agree internally to keep switching, but it doesn't really warrant having two representatives from the same category of representation. Then I was also looking at the penalties that have been prescribed. I looked at page 17 and in number 25. There is a bit of inconsistency in the penalty number 1, where they are talking of being liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 2,000 currency points. In this case, they are talking of 2,000 currency points being equated to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 10 years. But when you look at the other penalties, like the one on page 19 in 28, they are talking of not exceeding 1,000 currency points, and yet when you look at the term of imprisonment, it is the same, 10 years, just like the other one. And then when you look at page 18 also, in number 27, they are talking of a fine not exceeding 1,000 currency points, but the term is not exceeding 10 years. So I see some inconsistency there, and I think that it needs to be synchronized so that if we are talking of a term not exceeding 10 years, then the currency points should really be more or less the same across the board for purposes of consistency. On page 24, under 43, oath of secrecy, I'm not a legal person, so maybe I don't know the legal language. I don't know under what circumstances we use the word may, but I was thinking that doesn't the word may allow for a person to say I can do it or I cannot do it? Shouldn't it be mandatory that these people who are engaged in the preparation, conduct, and supervision of any examinations must undertake an oath of secrecy, having had those experiences where we have had situations where we've seen a lot of malpractices going on? So to me, I think that this oath of secrecy should be mandatory, and as such, people must take them as a way of committing themselves such that in case they don't do what we are expecting from them, they are fully liable. But the legal people can advise on that. Maybe I'm wrong. So basically, chairperson and honorable members, those are the few issues I thought I could highlight. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you very much, NCDC. And I bring it now back to the members. If there are issues you want to comment on, issues you want to seek clarification on, or any question you want to ask, please, you're welcome.
Chair, I want to start by thanking both the presentations, and it's nice to hear from you. Starting from the National Council for Higher Education, you, in two instances, you are mentioning that they should, in the sections, be able to include the fact about the examinations which they are responsible for. And Chair, I thought that is in the detail, because if you see at the opening, one of the reasons why this bill comes up is because there are other examination bodies, and this bill now wants to separate that. So I thought maybe in that separation, recognizing that the nurses, UBTEB, they're also having, so for every other examination they are talking about here, they are strictly talking about primary and secondary. And secondary divided into O level and A level. So maybe you can look at that. And then on section 4, on your point number 2, I think you are also right to say that if you now allow any other person to pay, it can bring a lot of problems. Maybe our legal people can help if we probably say authorized by the order. If I am Emmanuel, I'm the one who sat the exams and whatever, and at some point probably I cannot, if I authorize another person. Because the point they bring forward is that if you just leave it at any other person, there can be trouble. What if we talk about any other person authorized by this other person? Those were just the two simple areas that I thought I needed to comment on. Thank you so much.
Yes, Honorable Kisa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Honorable Chair. I want also to thank the two bodies for their presentation. Honorable Chair, when it comes to National Council for Higher Education, I wanted to concur with them on number 3, particularly when it comes to examination malpractice, where they are saying that they should refine to get only for the examinations over which the board has legal mandate. This is very correct. Honorable Chair, when the UNEB is carrying out investigations in the examination malpractice, sometimes they even go overboard. They start demanding even for mocks of schools, which may not be under their area of jurisdiction. So I wanted to concur with them on this number 3, that the examinations under which they must demand for examination should be within the boundaries of their mandate. But Honorable Chair, I wanted to inquire from National Council for Higher Education, or for clarity. UNEB, as an examining body, has the mandate to set and even issue documents for people who have sat, and they have the responsibility of equating results. I had thought that the National Council for Higher Education would also suggest that UNEB carries out the verification exercise, because it's the examining body that awards certificates for all Ugandans. Why do you continue taking on this mandate? Why don't we put it into this bill so that the verification exercise is done by this examining body? Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the presenters from National Council for Education and NCDC. But Chair, as we interact, we are trying to get experience from your side, so that we can see if we can use either your approach or your experience to handle this bill. And I have 3 sections. Section 1, the first one is the section 20. If you could read section 20. Section 20 is about power to borrow. If you read that section, you see that the board may borrow money from any source of, as may be required for meeting its obligations. So I want to know your experience about that section. How do you handle issues of borrowing as the National Council for Education and the NCDC? Do you just rush to Nkrumah Road and get the money lend and pick money because you're a board or you're handling matters of the board? So I want to know your opinion on that. Then another section is about section 26. Section 26 is about malpractices. And I want to look at G. When you look at G, G says, while engaged as a supervisor, invigilator, scout, monitor, or special needs education support personnel, negligent allows or fail to stop unauthorized assistance from being given a candidate, then they are giving down the penalties. I don't know whether how you are handling your staff in those matters where you have assigned responsibilities and they don't perform as per their mandate. Then the last one is 43. Section 43 is about the oath of secrecy. Especially National Council for Education, we are saying that all staff should take the oath. Now, to you, I don't know I think from UNEB's side, they are saying if there is a team that has been assigned examination, they are the one that should take oath. Then the other one who remain in the office and they are not involved in the exam, I think should not take the oath. That is my understanding. So I want to know from you, when you have either a season for inspecting schools or a season for printing and developing curriculum, do you take everybody on oath, including gatekeepers and cleaners? How is this oath handled as far as your entities are concerned? Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I forgot one thing about the representation of the vice chancellors, where there are two conflicting views about the ones from private institutions and also from public institutions. I'm asking myself, Chair, what is this special interest which somebody from a private university brings? And I want to believe they have an association of all vice chancellors. I think when we met, it was clear they have an association of all vice chancellors. Why can't they nominate from that association maybe one person? So, but still these are views which we are looking at. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Yeah, but of course, particularly in that one, even when we had an interaction with them, the NCDC bill, they are of the view that either they have to, or you allow them to nominate from amongst themselves. So that means it's still okay. They can vote someone they feel better represents them. But if there is space, they don't mind having a second slot. So there is nothing really so complicated here, because from themselves they are willing to have either or. Yes, so
Honorable Chair and members, we would like to thank you so much for your comments. A good number are for complimentary, as we actually agreeing, or not only actually not complimenting, but accepting our position and comments. And the others are just divergent views for discussion. The reason, particularly for the Vice Chancellors being distinguished between private and public, is being drawn from our experience of knowing the industry of higher education. At the moment, the number of private universities is bigger. Actually, it's the biggest. They are about 400 plus. The Vice Chancellor in the public are 9. Now, when you say that they elect among themselves, most likely you will never ever find a Vice Chancellor from public university elected to come to this committee, to this board. Never, because there will be the oppression of the majority. The democracy will not allow the public to be brought on board. And also, the Vice Chancellor of the public universities have not been very keen in the association, because for them they are cushioned by government, and you find that the agenda in many instances of the private of the Vice Chancellor's Forum is about funding, is about a number of things which already is being provided for to the Vice Chancellor of the public university. So the public universities are not keen to attend. And because they are not very keen to attend, also these people also don't think they are part and parcel of them. So that divide in terms of composition of the Vice Chancellor. That's why we are thinking that if there was room, another one would not hurt.
but on that particular one, as a committee, we have had a number of engagements with the Vice Chancellors before, but we see public universities equally represented in those meetings. Even our meeting last week.
Yeah, because you are a center of power, everybody wants something from here. Everyone is keen to come here. But when they are among themselves, the Vice Chancellor of public universities don't see the need to go and join this big gang of the Vice Chancellor from the private. So
and Chair, based on that, I would even think if they come now to be on the board here, their unkindness will be transferred here. So if it is the ones from the public universities who will elect themselves to come here, so be it. You from the public university, because you have less interest, don't even come and bother us on the board. At least let those ones who are there. Because I know that whatever discussions will be with the UNED, I don't think it will be too much about the university. It will be about this examination body here and about the issues around here. So if the guy from the public university being not keen the other side, let him stay there. I wouldn't have a problem.
And then why should we struggle to cushion someone who really thinks of only where he or she has to benefit directly? Even if you have nothing to benefit directly, can't you make a contribution for others to benefit? So if for them they're in their comfort zone, let's give those who can contribute to the development of UNEP a chance. Of course, that's the challenge with government. People think, okay, the others they are the ones who are desperately in need of some of those things, let them go. And if they can make a contribution to the improvement of examinations in this country, let's work with them.
Okay, Honorable Chair, certainly that's the view, and that's what it is. The question of equating and verification, I will ask our principal higher education officer to do that after my comments. And the powers to borrow from in terms of the board, also the legal officer will handle that one. Malpractice and authorization of assistance in terms of universities and colleges, these powers to examine and assess students reside with the universities and the assistants and academic boards. So you find that a number of universities have set different measures, but usually they are disciplinary measures to interface with people who engage in examination malpractice, and they have different penalties that they give. So there is no single set penalty that cuts across all the universities or even all the other tertiary institutions about somebody who engages himself or herself in examination malpractice. But I think in the case of the National Examination Council, which is national, it's important that there is the legal provision so that the council can be able to implement. Because if there is no legal provision, this board will just continue being helpless. Then on the...
I think on the grants, there is a provision for cancellation of that disqualification of a candidate.
Yes.
The registration, the bill proposes.
We thought that's why we had not comment, but the honorable member was asking our experience on it. Then on the question of staff taking oath, I think our legal officer will also handle that one.
But meanwhile, feel free to pick a cup of tea. You can walk over to the cold here, especially for me, I'm feeling it. So if you share the same experience with me, kindly pick a cup of tea, coffee, to warm yourself up.
Let them first submit. They earn the tea.
Chair and honorable members, National Council derives the mandate of declaring all qualifications from basically two laws. One is the universities and other tertiary institutions, which gives us a mandate to equate and recognize qualifications which are largely higher education qualifications, diplomas, degree, postgraduate higher education certificates, and so forth. Then the electoral laws, particularly the Parliamentary Elections Act, gives the National Council the mandate to provide a certificate of formal completion of A-level equivalent to certain category of members who are aspiring for political positions. Within those provisions, it states that this function is carried out in consultation with the UNEP. Which is a little bit funny. It's like you are going to do a surgery and the surgeon is there and then they tell you who's not a surgeon, do it in consultation with the surgeon. So we really think that that function is better placed within UNEP. the functions of equating qualifications at a level of primary, at a level of O level, at the level of A level, and we welcome the submission by the honourable member that within this bill we get an opportunity to include it that UNEB will be responsible for verification of all qualifications at this level for any purpose within Uganda. I submit, Chair.
Yeah, but as you said that you are a surgeon, but
Honorable Chair, he's not a surgeon.
can you allow the chair speak? Because you are to do the surgery when it's another person doing it. But I would think that we have already submitted here that they should issue certificates, whatever, for exams within their mandate.
Yes.
Isn't that so? So some of these certificates, I want to believe all these certificates are outside their mandate. So it's National Council that now brings in, because of the issue of A level, which is within the mandate of them, to work with them. And I want to believe in consultation with those other examining bodies, if it is like Uganda, those other examining bodies that are responsible for that particular certificate. And I want to believe that's why, if it is an institution outside this country, you reach out to them. I want to believe still, even within Uganda, if somebody did a technical course, you deal with EBITM. I want to believe so. So can you now add to what
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. You see, Honorable Chair, the professional worker of UNEP, we believe that they are well versed with the contents and everything related to examinations. And since they have that wide experience in exams, they set them, they mark and award the certificates in that particular context. I see it as having more mandate to verify this particular other, because in consultation above that of the National Council for Education. Because whereas the Universities Act gives them, but with this particular one, for example, if somebody sat an exam after maybe the technical, whatever and other things, it would be really very, very, very okay and more accurate if this is mandated within the functions of UNEP, rather than National Council for Education.
You know that the technical education exams are not within the competence of UNEP.
Yes.
You know that.
But
But National Council for Higher Education has the mandate over the institutions that deliver technical and
what is the competence, Honorable Chair, about the National Council for Higher Education in doing this?
Of course, we have said in consultation. If it's the technical bit, the mandate is within. If the technical bit, then you know.
Because me, I'm looking at the competence.
You see why we have met other stakeholders. We don't want to surrender other people's powers to them. It will be wrong. Simply because you are dealing with A level, and now you want to think that you have the technical and legal mandate over another examination. And maybe those are things we need to discuss further, because I would think that why would we leave the issue of the other entities to the administrative discretion?
That is exactly the point. high council of National Council for Education.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what, maybe, but unfortunately, that's not the law we are dealing with. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'll respond to the issue of borrowing and the oath of secrecy. Regarding borrowing, legally, I don't see any harm in a body corporate having the powers to borrow, for as long as the documentation is well handled and you don't end up with incidences of bailiffs coming to attach property, and for government agencies that would be really embarrassing. So I think it would be down to how the process is handled, the details. But of course at the council, I think I haven't handled that sort of thing. We haven't experienced that. But yeah, it's down to the documentation to protect the agency. Regarding the oath of secrecy, well, at the National Council, everybody takes the oath. And the reason is you find that a document shall stay lying at the photocopier. We've had experiences where a meeting is going on and the university runs to secure an interim order before a decision is passed. How did it leak? Sometimes it could be the person at the copiers where a document was left, or the person who has requested photocopy. Maybe. So that is the background why everybody who interacts with the work of an institution needs to have the oath. But there is also need for disclosure, because sometimes it's in the public interest that what you're doing needs to be disclosed. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, in addition of borrowing, in terms of sharing experience at National Council, we are regulated not only by the University and Tertiary Institutions Act, but when it comes to money, there is that act with finance and so on. So a government agency, you cannot borrow money because you are a corporate out of sources which are not approved by the Ministry of Finance. So still there is an obligation on the part of any agency of government in terms of transacting business outside its own orbit to make sure that they have approval either from Solicitor General or from the Minister of Finance. So I think they worry that they will go to Nkrumah and pick each and every coin may not be feasible in line of the current laws in Uganda. Thank you, Chair. We so submit.
Yeah, but specifically on that one, it's also good to be very clear. I don't give ambiguity, because we have seen cases where people argue, but this law allows me to borrow. Then again, the Public Finance and Management Act says this and that. But I was using the law under which I'm established. And then you find a lot of arguments. Somebody has already taken a decision. So I think it's good to strictly highlight that provision of the Public Finance and Management Act. And then on the issue of secrecy, I really agree with the requirement that everybody dealing with this shall be required to take the oath of secrecy. Because when you say may, especially those who are a little more powerful can decide to excuse themselves, and yet they might be the source of this information. Leaking information does not have an age or position level. No. We have heard of cases of examination malpractices that are masterminded by supervisors, senior fellows in the NABO hierarchy. Supervisors doing it. So you may think the supervisor is above it, when actually the whole problem comes from the supervisors. So I would think I would agree with that. But I want to go back to your presentation as Nietzsche and seek your guidance, especially from the legal person. You have also said a person who discloses an interest under subsection 1 shall continue to be engaged in the duties referred to. What do this mean when it says shall? And how do you compare this with the May? Because it is, to me, it's like irrespective of whether there is a high level of conflict of interest, one would say this person shall continue. And that means the board can also decide to say, no, let the person continue. What do you think?
My view is that the section needs to be reworked to say that if there is a person discloses a conflict of interest, then they should be disqualified from a particular assignment. Because the way it is, it leaves the discretion to the board to let people continue upon disclosure without really considering what nature the disclosure, the impact of the disclosure. So I think the way it is, it's a bit wanting.
Yeah. Yes, NCDC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members, and thanks National Council for Education for those clarities. Chairperson and members, normally what happens at NCDC is that when a person has a conflict of interest in anything, they can be in attendance, but they are not permitted to actively participate in the discussions. And they are also not permitted to vote. And they are expected to declare their conflict of interest. So that's how it's handled. They can be in attendance for any discussions, but they do not vote and they do not actively participate in that particular discussion. Chairperson and members, I wanted to draw your attention on page 6E. I'm battling with my mind and wondering what that section means with regard to what we have been discussing relating to the issuing of certificates by National Council for Higher Education as an equivalence. Maybe I'm confused, but I was thinking that section has some indication on what has been discussed in as far as issuing of certificates by National Council for Higher Education vis-a-vis that UNEB is concerned. So maybe we may need to revisit that statement to avoid any ambiguity that may be arising from the two institutions more or less doing something similar. The Honorable Member Itungo wanted us to give our view of how we do it. When it comes to issues of discipline, we have a committee, and what normally happens is that we first present the offender to our disciplinary committee before we even proceed to do anything. And then that goes to the governing council, which is the supreme body of the institution, before we make it now a legal matter. When it comes to issues of borrowing, NCDC is a legal entity. It is therefore authorized to borrow and also lend. But what happens is that we normally go through our governing council. We are not allowed to do anything until our governing council has approved. So maybe we can improve on section 20 on page on page 16, by adding something to do with the approval of the board, so that a person in the position of the executive director may not take advantage of the gaps in the law. So we could think of adding something to do with the approval of the board. I think those were the issues raised. Then the issue of oath of secrecy, maybe on that one. When we are employed, all senior staff of our institution are required to take an oath of secrecy. But then when it comes to writing of materials and other activities of curriculum development, we usually don't take oath of secrecy. We normally take it for the employees when we are joining. So that's how we have been handling it.
I submit, Chairperson and members.
Thank you. I want to give over to some 1 minute because I want to bring this to
Thank you, Chairman.
one end.
Thank you, Chairman. Now from their submission, Chair, can we improve section 20 about borrowing, adding authorization and approval, so that we know who authorized it and then who approved it? Remember when the Executive Secretary UNEB was here, he was quoting the Article 159 of the Constitution and then the Public Finance Management Act. But from the experience, Chair, can we capture the word authorization and approval as far as borrowing is concerned? Then the rest one, Chair.
We can note it because we are still getting views
Then the rest
from
one,
other
Chair.
stakeholders. Yes, please.
Chair, the rest one is about the conflict of interest. If I'm a UNEB secretary, am I not supposed to have children who sit in UNEB exams? Must I resign or leave office because the exams are going on and I have a conflict of interest? And I think it's Chair, from that angle, that's why UNEB is proposing that it should be the decision of the board to see whether a person can either influence the process because of the position or something, but saying that the person should be excluded because of conflict of interest, that means somebody may close office and go home during examination period, and yet he's an important person as far as the handling of exams is concerned.
The examinations board may require a person who is engaged in the preparation, conduct, and supervision of any examinations or the handling of any examination papers or materials to take the oath of secrecy as may be prescribed by the examination board. We are not really saying that you should resign or whatever, but we are saying that you can't say that you must stay there when you may be directly handling your child's paper. If you are like marking, for instance, and you are marking your child's school, you must declare your interest. That's what was a conflict of interest. Declare your interest, and you may be allowed to continue, but it cannot be shall. It's like even when there is a high possibility that your conflict of interest can really highly manifest in terms of the outcome, the law is saying you have to be there. But anyway, I think this is what we shall engage at another level. Let's note it. And
Chair was just looking at the presentation by the National Council for Education, where they are saying that once such a person discloses, then he should be excused from the assignment.
Yeah, I think still we will engage further after getting other views and comparing. I don't know whether there's anybody who feels I could have denied him or her the opportunity to say the last. But having received the different views and also responses, I want to thank Nietzsche and NCDC for responding to our invitation, and also for sharing your views as far as this bill is concerned. We are very hopeful that with this kind of input, we are bound to have a law that is more acceptable among the relevant stakeholders.